Welcome and hello, everybody. I am Denise Smith of Our Metaverse. Meta, spelled with two T's, means loving kindness. We are a community coming together through loving kindness to share our common humanity. Tonight, we have the honor of hosting teacher Karuna Cayton. Karuna acquired a master's in clinical psychology in 1992. He's a licensed psychotherapist, having trained at the Children's Health Council in Palo Alto, California. From 1975 to 1988, he lived at the Kopan Monastery, studying Buddhist psychology and philosophy under the guidance of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. There, he established a Western studies program for monks. He is the principal at the Karuna Group, a project engaged in interpreting Buddhist psychology, psychological theory, and interventions for modern people. He is the author of The Misleading Mind, How We Create Our Own Problems and How Buddhist Psychology Can Help Us Solve Them. And I'm going to tease out there's another book coming soon. Thank you so much, Karuna, for being here with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. We have to update that bio because I've kind of retired from therapy part of it. So, but not from helping, right? I mean, not from psychology.
Yeah.
And also Kopan Monastery is in Nepal.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I was reading that too. Yeah, okay. I want to start this evening as I'm studying a little bit more about the importance of intention and motivation setting right in the beginning of any type of action or practice, especially since we're going to be doing karma this evening, and this will be the first of two classes with Karuna. And intention, we like to say, is what we will do while we are together. And motivation is why we will choose to do that. And an example might be I will listen and interact with curiosity and an open mind so that I might expand my own and help others should it be fit someday. Whatever seems to resonate with you, I invite you to take a minute now and set an intention and motivation for being here this evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Looks like Alessandro just came in too. Karuna, I'm not going to do check-ins tonight. I think I'm going to have you go because I love how interactively you teach. And I think that this is going to be wonderful to have an opportunity to be with you again.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, so we will be as much interactive as you want to be. I always like interaction because then I know what's going on in your minds and if I'm hitting the mark, or communicating with you. That's the main thing is that we communicate, connect together. Sometimes, if you have content to deliver, then I might just wait on the interaction in order to get through some content. Excuse me. This particular topic, so within our organization that we call the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, we have a number of educational programs. One of them is referred to as the basic program, which I teach time to time. And in fact, any of you can sign up for these programs as well. And in the basic program, I think has 13 modules. Each one runs from a month to 2 months long. And one of them is on karma. And so I've taught that. And usually, so you think about that. Denise asked me, can I talk on karma, for basically 3 hours or less. And it's such a huge topic, but I should be able to do it anyway. But just so you know that formally, this is a very formal topic that we do study, of course. So in the academic sense, there's a lot of content. And like I said, it takes a couple months to go through the material. So you cover it from A to Z. But we're not so concerned about that at the moment. I will use that content just as a platform for us to have a conversation or for me to present the ideas so that hopefully you begin to get an appreciation for this very rich and very important topic. So one of the things I would like to ask before I go into the content, is what is when you hear like karma, and you come into this class, what kind of conceptions do you have about this topic? You can just chime in and unmute or
Yeah,
whatever.
I'll start. So, my favorite statement, of course, of karma is the standard one. My karma ran over your dogma, but that's not relevant. I just had to put that out there before you did, Karuna. Yeah. So I'm fascinated by karma. I don't understand really that much about it. All I know is that it's something akin to cause and effect. And I assume it's more than just the cause and effect of, I hit a pool stick and that hits the white ball and that hits this ball and that goes into that pocket.
Right.
I assume it's much more complicated and rich than that. And I assume it's about much more than just objects interacting, but also maybe things that we can't see or parts of us or emotions or intentions and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I believe in Buddhist philosophy, it also follows us through into our next incarnation, if I'm not mistaken. That's the part that I'm really fascinated and completely non-knowledgeable about it.
Oh, great. Yeah. All that's correct. And we'll get into that more as we speak. That's helpful.
How about you, Nathan?
I'm trying to sit here and like actually think about it, and the more I realize I don't know, so I really don't. I think that what I think of it as and what I've like grown up to think of it as is not what it is.
Right. That'd be right.
So I'm interested to learn.
Would you mind if I said, like, hey, my friends and I threw around the word karma, or that's your karma? Like, what is your experience at all? Just throwing it around. You don't.
I mean, like if you do something bad to someone, something bad is gonna happen to you. Like some, I feel like that's the base of it all. But I feel like that's very surface level, and I feel like there's so much more to it.
There is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. When?
I'm along the same lines as Nathan. I always thought karma was whatever you put out, whatever you put out is like a ricochet, you get back. And as like basic as that. And I think we talked about it when one of the classes, and I was like, wow, I don't even understand anything about this. So I know there's more to it, but that's been my basic understanding of it.
Good. Thank you.
But I'm like with Kevin.
Sorry.
I would like to know, I'm like with Kevin where the like how it carries into other lives, I think is really interesting because, sometimes you wonder about karma with like infant deaths and, like what I don't know. There's a lot of things that might carry through that I'm actually interested in as well, but I don't know if we'll cover that, but
hopefully at least, we'll be able to touch on everything. The depth of it is how deep we can go is a different story. But I think that those comments, those ideas we can deepen those right away. Yeah.
okay.
Noemi, are you available to share?
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with what people, all of what you said. But I also wonder, right? Because you feel like some people behave so badly in this life on Earth or whatever, right? And then you're like, but nothing has happened to that person yet. So it's like, well, maybe, I don't know, there's something else there, right? That I don't get. So yeah.
Okay. Good.
Thank you. Alessandro? Would you like to share your interpretation?
I mean, it's kind of similar to everybody. I mean, I think it's like the effect of intention, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, good. So now I'm prepared to confuse you more. Okay, so I have a set of slides, of course, but I think let me just talk freely for a few minutes here. We'll get into this in more depth and then maybe more explanation in terms of a logic-based answer to some of these points. But just to set the ground first, yeah, karma is one of those words that's been thrown around a long time. It's not at all, from my point of view, correctly understood, even on a fundamental level, just on a definition level, we have everything from instant karma to, like, I think it was Noemi, or I can't remember, Noemi saying that, why do good things happen to bad people, or bad people acting badly? Why can they still do it? So number one is karma is a law like gravity or quantum physics or something like that. So it's not something so simple. But it is something understandable. It is. It's just it's a law. And being a law that's not really interpreted in Western science yet, or Western psychology. So a few basic things about karma is it, and we'll get into this more, generally speaking, Nohemi, right? Nohemi, am I saying that right? Yeah. Generally speaking, this is for everyone's benefit. Karma created, or let me put it different. Karma experienced this lifetime. 99% was not created this lifetime. Okay, so that's just a, we'll go into that, why that is. There are some very, very, very heavy actions, very negative actions that can be experienced this lifetime. Okay, but for the most part, when we see bad people getting away with bad stuff, generally speaking, it may not be heavy enough for that karma to ripen this lifetime. There's reasons, and there's elements to this law. There are many factors in this, that I can explain. Elements not the right word. Many components, that make up this law and affects why does karma ripen, why does that karma ripen, why do bad people get away with it? Why other bad people don't get away with it? Why good people don't get away with it? Why bad things happen to good people? All that, from the point of view of karma, if we understand it by the end of these two classes, you'll get that those questions are not at all relevant to karma. They're relevant, but they don't define how karma works. Okay, so those are a couple ideas to get out of one's head right away. Also, a lot of times, none of you said this, but a lot of times people equate karma with fate. Oh, it's his karma, right? Oh, it's her karma, that sort of thing. But it's not fate. Fate, when you think about it, fate is sort of like almost, yeah, fate, if you just think about for a moment, fate is not really seen as something around cause and effect. It's just, wow, it's good fate, I think we talked about a couple months ago, we did a class on reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nature of reality.
Nature of reality. So in the context, I'm not going to go into that too deep at all, but when one has a perception of how things really are, which is what we're talking about when we talked about the nature of reality, through wisdom perceives things as they really are, and ignorance perceives things as sort of like we really are, we could say. Ignorance sees everything incorrectly. When a person, a spiritual practitioner, begins to cultivate wisdom, which is in your mind already, it's just undeveloped, it's hibernating, so to speak. When that wisdom begins to awaken, you begin to see the world through the eyes of wisdom. Not everything we see right now is through the eyes of ignorance or not knowing. Not knowing what? Not knowing reality. Not knowing how really things are. Okay. One of the things that when wisdom begins to dawn within the mind, and you start perceiving things as they really are, what you realize is that the relative conventional world that you're perceiving, it doesn't exist the way it appears. And how it appears to us, we talked about this, how it appears to us as something sort of fixed, permanent, unchanging, not interdependent, but things seem to exist independently. When I look at you and you look at me, or whatever you look at, the flowers, they all appear to exist independently over there. And this is something that I can talk about, but it's really something you need to meditate on more and more. So you begin to get the feeling like, oh, I see what he means. I see everything independent. The way things really are they are dependent. So when when wisdom begins to dawn, the perception of dependency or interdependence begins to appear to that person. It's not appearing to us. Okay. Well, I speak for myself. So without wisdom, that the normal way of seeing the world is what we do all the time, right? When we meditate on the nature of reality, which is wisdom, then slowly, of course, you begin to have insights into that. Even glimpses, even if for a short second. And when we begin to perceive the nature of how things really are, which is a definition of reality, by the way, then you will begin to see things as interdependent. And in a broad sense, that's the meaning of karma. When you see those things, when you see things in how they are, you'll see them as being dependently arising, not sitting there independently. It's a perception. Before the perception can arise, we have to sort of intellectualize this, right? I mean, you can't just have that, most likely you can't have that perception arise if you don't know the theory. So that's why we study. Okay, it's very important. But the whole point of study is so that we can experience. Study in and of itself will never give you an experience, by the way. As Lama Yeshe said, you can't get experience from a book. You get experience through meditation, mind cultivation. Experience means a mental experience. Okay. So the idea of karma, which we could say cause and effect, karma literally means mental. Well, no, it's the easiest or most impactful way to think of karma is that karma means work, by the way, or action. Primarily, we're talking about mental action. So when you get rear-ended in the parking lot and someone says that's your karma, I mean, of course it is your karma, but what they're referring to is not really what we're talking about as karma. Of course, karma is involved because karma being mostly a mental quality, a mental experience, a mental fabrication, lack of a better word. The car hitting your car, the car backing into your car, or whatever, it's a physical action, isn't it? Just not being too philosophical, it's a physical action. What we don't know when I was talking about interdependence is we just see the guy backing into your car, right? What we don't see is interdependence or dependence. What it's dependent on, there's no experience of that car backing into your car without, let's just say, without an eye organ, is there? Sight. If there's no sight, there's no backing into the car. Now, of course, you could say you could hear it. Okay, so one of the senses, but if there's not a sense organ to deliver the information to your mind, you don't have an experience. Mm-hmm. So what we see, so there's three things that are interdependent here. There's the action of the car rolling into your car. Then there's the sensory, recording of it, right? Let's say it's the eye for now, it's the easiest, right? But even then, that car and our sight or sight is not an experience yet, is it? We think it is. It's not an experience. If there's no mind there, there is no experience for you. So these three things at the very minimum have to be operating to talk about an experience. Now, I have a question for you. If you start thinking like kind of very philosophically, very radically, the car backing into your car, where is that happening? Now, because of ignorance, not knowing, confusion, we say it's happening out there, right? But now knowing that these three elements are involved, where is the experience happening?
Presumably in our mind.
Right. Because the experience is in, what happens is the car, you see the car and there's information delivered through your eyesight and the data of the car, and you have a mental image arises in your mind. Now, we don't even know that, but that's my
assumption.
Yeah, I mean, that's going into the psychology of how experience happens. The way experience happens is we experience everything through a mental image. Okay, we don't even experience things bare, as we say, we don't have bare experience. There's always a moment after the experience is what we experience, which is interesting. So we're always living in the past. So, and now we're talking nanoseconds, of course, faster than nanoseconds, but still what you experience, or what I experience, what we experience in that car is a mental image. It's not even the actual action. It's not the actual experience. We never experience it. When the mind gets very quiet and trained, then we begin to have we experience bare perception, that first moment, and we're also aware of the second moment, a mental image. It's fascinating. Okay.
Wow.
So when Denise was talking about intention, and this is a little bit technical, but the human mind is always experiencing. That's its job. Okay. The body is not always experiencing. In fact, body is not always experiencing. The mind is, even in a coma, even in deep sleep. Okay? The mind cannot go without experiencing. Okay, of course, it's very, 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 very subtle. And we're not, the meditator, by the way, is aware of those deeper experiences. The profound meditator. Someone like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who never slept. He never slept. I knew him for 45 years. I even lived in the same room with him for a month or two. But I know from his attention, he never slept. Because his mind was so profound and such a deep meditator and the Dalai Lama, other Lama Yeshe, there's other lamas and meditators, the mind becomes so trained and still that they can see all of this. It's experiential, not theoretical. For us to experience it, we have to know the theory first, which is what we're doing today, right? So always whether we're in a coma or asleep, even during the times of death, there are five mental qualities that are always there. Okay? This is I'm just telling you the technical psychology of this. So since the mind is always experiencing, it has to have these five things operating at the very minimum. And one of them, one is contact. The mind has to be contacting an object. So that's one function. There's always a feeling, but this feeling is not like we think of feeling. This is kind of a sensation. There's always experience sensation. I'm not going to mention all five, but the third one is there's always an intention. So this is not the intention like what Denise was, and we do before meditation or before a class or before we go into the supermarket or before we go into a job interview or before we put our kids to sleep or before we, those, you can understand those intentions, right? Those are pretty basic. that's not what this mental factor of intention means. What it means is the mind is always has an intention to move towards an object. The reason is, so it's very, very subtle. It's very, very basic, you could say. A lot of times, maybe I can put it like if the mind, let's take a mind perceives a cup of coffee, right? And actually, before the coffee, you get in your car and you can say, I'm gonna stop at Pete's and get a coffee, right? So there's an intention there, isn't there? But what happened in this level of intention is that a mental image or a memory or something struck your mind you're not even aware of, right? Not even having way back before you got in your car. Maybe when you woke up, you say, I have a big day today. I don't have time for making any coffee. You know, can happen so quickly. So the mind has the intention to get the cup of coffee, but what happens in these 5 mental factors is that the memory of it gives you a pleasant sensation. That's the feeling part. Remember I said there's 5 mental factors. So the mind, these 5 things, some sort of memory pops up that we're not even aware of, and there's contact with that memory. There's a feeling like the feeling like
Rachel's coming in.
Okay.
Welcome, Rachel.
Okay, so there's a feel, right? So there's contact, the memories have there's a feeling that this all is happening in absolute warp speed. And the feeling comes up, and then the maybe intention goes, oh, I'd like that. But you are not, there's not a conscious level. So intention, all of this stuff, every instant leaves an imprint on our mind. Okay. Now, remember I said karma essentially means mental action. Do you see all the mental action that's going on there? I mean, you can't see it, but as you meditate and get calm, you will be able to perceive this. You will be able to perceive this. The more you calm the mind and focus on the mind's functions, which is the real Buddhist therapy. Okay, this is Buddhist therapy. Meditation is Buddhist therapy. So as you all that mental action, right? Well, that is karma. That is karma. Mental imprint. So when you think of karma from now on, you're not allowed to think about instant karma or all these things. It actually, the best way to understand it is it's a mental imprint. Okay. A seed.
Yeah.
And that's all stored on the consciousness, and intention is actually referred to as karma. If you're going to find some part of the mental factors that are karma, it's intention. And you can see how it gets now as it grows, like I really want that cup of coffee, right? I mean, it becomes more conscious. And then they're doing road work and they reroute you so you can't get to Pete's without being late for work. What happens to the mind?
Agitated.
Gets agitated and all that. So angry maybe with the people. You yell at the guy who's holding the sign saying stop and slow. I don't know if you do that. You probably don't do that, but you know, you see, just to make a point, do you see all that mental action and how it becomes intensified and how it becomes dramatic and how it becomes kind of energized? That is what determines strength of karma. And can you imagine, for example, why we say killing is a negative action, is negative karma? It's one of the heaviest negative karmas. Is think what your mind has to do to intentionally kill something. Think of the mental action. There's going to be, now I'm going to be a little bit, you know, most people know my style. I kind of get a little bit dramatic, but just to make a point, like I say, you kill someone, you got to get a lot of anger going and a lot of passion going and a lot of planning that's going and a lot of your adrenaline is pumping, and you see that person, you know, day after day in your mind about how you're going to kill them. I'm being dramatic, but that happens at all levels. You know, whether it's even the thought of, you know, cutting down your neighbor's limbs that are hanging over your fence and you do it late at night, something, or cutting someone off on the freeway, or, getting pissed off at someone who's, been rude to you, whatever. Okay, so that's, now think of karma as mental action. Okay. So, and I'll go back to this later, but just to be provocative, when that car backed into your car, how much of that experience actually, now that we've had this little talk, how much of that experience is actually mental? And I ask you something else with that question. Can you find the part of that experience that's not mental? I want you to, that's my question to you guys.
That's not mental.
Yeah.
I can't.
I don't think I can either, yeah.
Yeah, and like what I'm thinking is, let's say that 2 accidents happened simultaneously. One of them involved me and one of them was all the way around the world.
Right.
2 identical accidents and incidents, but I'm only aware of one of them.
Correct.
But both sets of physical actions happened, but with respect to me, only one set happened.
Right.
And that's because I was there to perceive them in the way that you've been talking about.
Right. So when you get angry, pissed off at the guy who backed into you, those imprints are in your consciousness.
Yeah.
And if they're imprints and we think of them as seeds, they will ripen.
Right.
Around the world in Hong Kong, the guy, your clone, same thing happens, but different set of consciousness, right?
Right.
And he gets out of the car and thanks the person because he really wanted to get a new car, and now he has an excuse to get a new car. Completely different set of mental action, right?
Right.
So then you guys, 2 guys meet next lifetime, and you're in a raffle to win a new car, and he wins it and you don't. I'm making it up, but you know what I mean? Because he has a different set of imprints. He had the imprints. In fact, he not only in Hong Kong, he not only was happy the guy hit his car, he gave him the car, right? Because he saw that the guy was struggling in life, he was poor or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And just bear with me as I be simplistic, because I'm trying to, help make a point. It's of course much more complex than that. But anybody else?
Nathan, what'd you think of that?
Of what? Of the car, the accident one? Yeah, I mean, it's all mental. I'm not wrapping my head around a lot of it though.
Okay, okay, help me out here. How can I help? I mean, we're just starting, right? We're just starting anyway. It doesn't,
yeah. Like I didn't understand the guy across the world. I understand from your, perspective, how that's all mental, but I didn't understand what he was saying about the guy across the world.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure either, but I think what he was saying that was.
Let's say it's the guy 2 stalls down.
Actually, I do understand how you came to how that guy wins the car in the thing. Okay, I do understand.
In other words, the point that I was trying to make is that just because the 2 cars, 2 accidents looks kind of similar or same, they're not, right? Because each person's experience of it is unique and different, and background is unique. Now, it's true when we're, let's say you're with a friend and you both get motivated to do the same thing. I don't know, to do something. It's almost like you're in the same mindset, like gangs, right? Gangs tend to share a similar mindset. So they're probably creating similar mental imprints, but they are individual, okay, this is really stereotypical, sorry, but a gang decides to beat somebody up and they hunt them down. And there's 5 guys in the gang. And then one of the guys in the gang all of a sudden decides this isn't right and runs off. So he's got a different set of imprints, right? And those will ripen. Okay, those will ripen someday, and probably not this lifetime. But then it'd be one of those things like, why did everyone else get caught but that guy didn't? Next lifetime or something. Or there's many stories like that. It's very So I'm just trying to be, I am being kind of not superficial, but a little bit simplistic, because if we get too complex, I'll really lose you right now. Okay, anybody else? And don't expect you're gonna follow this. Remember, I told you I teach it for months sometimes. And I've studied for years and years and years, and it's always something new to try to understand, always something I don't understand. So there's no problem there, and I don't mind people asking questions or being confused. I don't want to leave you confused, but it should confuse. I mean, if you study quantum physics, I still try to understand a little bit, the Idiot's Guide to Quantum Physics, and I still can't follow it, Yeah.
Sandro, how's this grabbing you?
In the accident scenario, it's kind of interesting because usually the two people, even within that same accident, have two different realities of how that went down.
Right. Correct.
So that's kind of what I attached to with that.
Yeah. So what I'm adding to that, Alessandro, is that because they have two different realities around that experience, they generate different mental imprints. And in part, the mental imprints, well, let's go into it. So I agree with you. That's the point, actually. No, this is too complex. So everything in the universe, every phenomena is either form or formless, okay? So formless, we know what form is. That means atomic, molecular. And formless, we've talked about, I think, before. Formless things are things like awareness or the mind, time, persons, impermanence, space. Space is formless. Okay. So in terms of karma, we're talking about, it's karma is actually formless because it's a mental quality, it's a mental activity. So karma, if you want to know if something's form or formless, then you just look at about pretty much as if something's mental, it's formless. If it's a product, if it's made up of atoms and molecules, it's form. And it gets more technical than that, but that's basically where we're at. So products come into existence through causes and conditions. Now, this is where we begin to separate from the common understanding of karma, okay? Generally speaking, so the car backing into your car, when we get down, it is not karma. The car is not karma. It's hard to say, isn't it? Mm-hmm. There's conditions. There's all of these conditions that happen. Always people say, well, why is, what's the karma for people born with disabilities or, something, challenges like that, physical challenges, and, it's the DNA. Okay, I want to say something that's a little bit provocative. So DNA, oxygen being deprived from the brain of the child, inexperienced surgeon or OBGYN or all those things are not technically karma. And this is very important. Those are conditions. If the conditions are not right, the karma won't ripen. Now, for the child to have that kind of rebirth or that kind of mind and that kind of consciousness and that kind of experience, that is karma. Okay? So, conditions, without the conditions, by the way, the karma won't ripen. That's what's interesting. So if you have a strong addiction to alcohol, okay, the mental experience of alcohol, that's alcoholism is a mental experience. Let's say that you grew up in an alcoholic. People say, well, your parents were alcoholic, and I think depending on the model, right? People will say, well, I think alcoholism is actually genetic, right? Sometimes we hear like that. So genetic, see, and then we'll blame everything on the genes, right? And then eventually blame on your parents and these kinds of things. But actually, from the Buddhist psychological point of view, DNA or the genetics are conditions. If you have the condition, let's just say there's an alcoholic gene. I don't know if they say that or not. Let's say the alcoholic gene. If you never go into a bar, you're born in a Muslim country, that bans alcohol. That imprint of alcoholism will not rise for you. So it's not an independent thing just because you have the karmic imprint. Because in a sense, we almost have like every karmic imprint probably. But if you don't come into the conditions, then the karma doesn't arise. So one of the things about why in Buddhist thought and other religious thought, well, in explaining the Buddhist context, why we practice morality or ethics is to avoid the risk that those karmic imprints will arise by going into the difficult situations. Now, someone like Lama Zopa Rinpoche could go anywhere because he didn't have the karmic imprints anymore. Okay, and just like us, just like us, some of us can go and do a bar or whatever. And I mean, it's just a simplistic example, and not be driven to drink or not drink at all or not get drunk, right? Because we don't have the imprint. This is really, really important. So the imprint being there or not being there, we don't know, right? Because we're not clairvoyant or we're not that subtle. Okay.
Is imprint synonymous with propensity?
I think so, more or less, yeah. Yeah. Potential.
What is that? What is the definition of that, Nisi? I don't even know that word.
Which one?
Whatever, I can't even repeat it. I don't know what you just
propensity.
Propensity.
What's the definition of that?
Something that has, I don't know, I gotta think about it.
An inclination to do something, or a greater likelihood of doing something. Like I have a propensity.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, to blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a propensity to actually catch the ball if it goes to right field, as opposed to me.
Or you have the propensity to get angry when you're in slow traffic. I'm not covering this. It's very important, but I'm worried about over doing it.
Karuna, do you see Sandra's question on how do we get rid of imprints?
You can't go there right yet.
My bad.
That's the whole idea of the spiritual practice, is how to get rid of imprints. And that's the beauty of, you see, that's the beauty of this karmic talk, because they're impermanent, they're conditional as well, and they're not, self-existent by themselves. They're all interdependent. So the way that we get rid of those propensities is through purifying the mind itself. Now, the mind is pure already, so it's kind of a misnomer to say purify the mind. But there's many spiritual practices are designed in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. That's exactly right, because we see that as the root of the problem. Is I keep getting, the root of the problem is ignorance, but I can't seem to get out of it. I know that I shouldn't, cut in line at the supermarket. I know that, right? We know it, but we do it. Maybe you don't. I don't either. But I know I shouldn't. What's another one? I know I shouldn't eat that extra slice of cheesecake or something, right? I know I shouldn't have another bowl of ice cream. We know a lot of stuff.
No, we shouldn't yell.
Huh?
For me, it's like, I don't want to yell ever again. I know I shouldn't. And sometimes I raise my voice like, oh, I know not to do that.
Right. That's because the imprints for you yelling are, kind of predominant, at this point.
Karuna, a quick question. So I might have missed this. So you said imprints are not permanent. Imprints by definition are impermanent.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because they're mental and just about everything. Imprints are products, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna go through this. I hope I don't intellectualize you guys to death. This is really dangerous. But if you really want to understand karma, then we have to do this. So products, things come into existence through causes and conditions. Because this exists, that occurs. Simple. If this exists, that occurs. Because this has been produced, that has been produced. Because you produce a cup, you also produce the conditions actually for the cup to disintegrate. Okay? These are conditioned by ignorance. There is formative action. Okay, so what happens is every time we do something, okay, really praying I don't lose you. Every time we do anything, okay, there is a mind that involved. And the mind that's involved doesn't see things correctly. So when I pick up my mug here and drink some tea, okay, the condition for drink of all this is the cup, the tea, right? My hand, my mouth, those are all the conditions, okay? But in order to really drink the tea, I have to have a mind involved too, don't I? Right? So my mind involved is the thing that sees this tea as really desirable, and then I drink it, and that's why I have an ember cup, right? Because I believe that I can't be happy if my tea doesn't stay hot for an hour, right? That's all I just is just ignorance. Ignorance is involved in that it sees this tea as something pleasurable, right? And if it's cold, what do? What happens to me? Why is this ember cup not working anymore? Why is it so cold? It doesn't taste good. That's all karma. That's all imprints, right? I'm creating imprint after imprint. But the way that why I create those imprints is due to ignorance, confusion, not knowing. So I don't know the true nature of this tea. Because I don't know the true nature of this tea, I think this tea is something that's going to give me pleasure and going to make me feel good, right? And then it's cold and I don't feel good, right? So this tea is neither good or bad. My mind has produced it as good or bad, right? It's only and then I talked to Nathan, and Nathan says he hates hot tea. He'll take the tea if it's cold. So it's not the tea, is it? It's not. We think it's in the tea. The happiness is in the tea. It's not. It's in my mind. It's my preconception. That's karma. That's imprints. That's due, and it's really important. And then Nathan, I hear you in a second. My point is, ignorance does not see this cup of tea properly, does it? This cup of tea is neither good or bad. It's just data. If it was good, if hot tea was good, Nathan would also like it because its nature is good. But because ignorance thinks this tea is good, ignorance, and then it engages with it and it gets angry because it's cold, that's karma. That's creating karma. It's simple as that. It's as simple as that. What it makes it more complex is the size of the actions we're always doing. Big and small. Okay, Nathan?
Yeah.
Have I totally lost you now?
No. What I'm trying to say right now is very like deep to me. So like throughout my journey, like whenever I become more there's like times where I'm less and more ignorant about my thoughts. There's like a weird like crossroads in between not being ignorant and being ignorant. It's like it's almost very scary to see how I am ignorant when I am, because I can see myself being ignorant.
Right.
And like it's also sometimes very scary to be not ignorant because it's something that is so unfamiliar.
Yeah.
It's like it's scary to unlock this stuff. It's very like not like life. You know what I mean? It takes you away from the things that you do in your day. Mm-hmm. And it like, it makes you think about everything completely different. And I feel like that's very scary.
It is.
It's super scary.
That's good. Very, very good. Very good. I mean, very good, accurate explanation. I agree with you. If we were to see reality unprepared, we'd shit ourselves.
Unprepared if we weren't prepared.
Unprepared.
Yeah.
So Nathan, and everyone, the reason we do this, and my sincere, my sincere feeling, with you guys and everybody, is that it's not just a matter of knowing this stuff, it's a matter of practicing and preparing. So there's many, many stories of the experience, so in my case, I train now, I don't know, 45 years. And my training is to perceive and cultivate the awareness of reality and compassion. Well, compassion is a byproduct of that, by the way. You don't really need to worry about compassion if you see reality, because when you see reality, you see the nature of the world and people's condition. And so then that's authentic compassion. What we do is inauthentic. It's kind of like, I mean, it's good, but it's not real compassion because we still see duality and we still see it through ignorance, right? So it's and I know I have friends who during meditation retreats, they do begin to develop insight into reality and they freak out. It's like acid, right? So the reason they freak out is because they didn't develop and they haven't developed enough of the foundation understanding. And I do, that you can prepare for, you just have to prepare. It's kind of like, I don't know, ayahuasca. People prepare to take an ayahuasca journey, right? And so in this case, this is ayahuasca is nothing. I remember the story of Baba Ramdas's guru. He was quite old. And this is in the Hindu tradition, not the Buddhist. And Ramdas was one of the founders or the pioneers of LSD, right? And he was with his guru in India, and his guru said, "What are you making this big deal about these little pills?" And Ram Dass tried to explain, and then Neem Curly Bob says, "Well, give me one." And Ram Dass kind of freaked out because this was pure LSD, it was like really strong LSD. And so he said, and then Neem Curly Bob insisted, and Ram said, "God, he's so old, I'm going to kill him," And he put one, so he insisted, so he put one in his palm, and he says, "Give me another." He didn't take it, so put another one. And Ron's like just going to panic. He ended up, I can't remember how many, but several hits of acid. And Nim Kurlibaba took them all at once. What happened to him?
Didn't affect him.
Nothing. Yeah. And then after about several hours, he says, "This is what you're so excited about?" So, because he was prepared. I mean, I don't know what his experience was. So some people that we prepare and they do have, as they get an insight, they might freak out. What we call that they don't have enough of the positive mental imprints to hold them going into that experience. And so it's not, in fact, the topic of emptiness or the nature of reality is not taught traditionally till very advanced levels. Now, in the West, we're teaching it more because people seem to be able to, I don't know, intellectually grok it, right? And people are interested in it. And there's many reasons for that. We're different than the traditional Tibetans. We're different mindset. So the freaking out part really just has to do with what we call merit. Merit just means positive imprints. So we have to do a lot of preparation. That's the point. And we have a whole organized way to prepare. Okay. Yeah. One primary support for being able to actualize the direct insight into emptiness or reality is the practice of morality. Because practice of morality is not some religious thing. It's about balancing our energies, internal energies. Okay. When we're doing something really not right, how we get all, I mean, just, if you're going to I don't know, something not right, like you're going to steal something, how your body gets all amped up or nervous and
bitchy.
Yeah. So morality is the opposite. Lama Zopa was asked not long ago, he was giving a public talk. I remember he was the one that never slept and always was serving, doing something for others. And then one person in the audience asked him, "What do you do to relax?" And he said, "I practice morality." Interesting, huh? Or ethics.
That's such a good answer. That's such a good answer.
Okay, let me go back to sharing. Any other questions, or maybe something in the chat?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So, I like Denise's comment about seeds being planted, because I'm slowly trying to understand it, but there are still some things I'm not understanding. But in order to prepare, do you prepare by having positive mental imprints?
That is
Maybe we can implant them in.
Yeah, the preparation is generating positive imprints and correct philosophical understanding. So there is an intellectual component here. You know, people, and it's one of my pet peeves right now. All these different, Buddhist approaches, new approaches, and the whole thing is about experiencing emptiness and these various things. And first of all, they don't, when they describe it, it's not it. And actually we have this very common understanding that many people who meditate on the nature of reality, or the emptiness, whatever you want to call it, are actually meditating on space. And they mistake space with the experience of emptiness, of true existence. They're not the same. In fact, meditating on space can lead to a very, very bad mental state, or it can anyway. I could go into details, but it's not important. So that's why we're quite rigorous in our study. But the study is not for intellectual gain. It's so that I can go meditate, and I'm on my own, right? I go into retreat, and my Lama is my mind, my study, right? Through getting being really clear that I got this straight. And I look at a lot of the Buddhist spiritual traditions now that are becoming very in vogue, and they don't got it right. And it disturbs me. But what can I do? I'm just one person. Yeah.
Wendy?
Can I ask one more question without, I don't want to take too much. What are we preparing for? Did I miss that?
Oh, yeah. To be happy. Because
simple. We
think that my partner cheating on me, right? I'm trying to think dramatically, please forgive me if I'm offending anybody. My partner cheat, because that's torture, right? When your partner cheats on you, it's like you go insane. So my partner cheating on me, ultimately speaking, is due to my karmic imprints. The condition is my partner cheating. Yes. The experience why my partner cheated on me is my karmic imprints, because they didn't cheat on the person next door or your friend, right? Yeah, just 1 second. Just 1 second.
Wendy, one of the things that I learned today that was like preparing for a lesson, right? Like I was looking forward to having everybody together again. I love these Mondays together. And so I'm reading this book on how to prepare. And one of the things was to sweep the floor of the place where I will do a practice. But I'm not just sweeping it to clean the floor. I'm sweeping it with the mental attitude of cleaning my mind and setting a totally fresh, not polluted mind up for what I might learn. So that's one example of something that I learned about preparing.
So I'm gonna challenge Denise here, because Denise wasn't listening. Obviously, it's not the action.
No, but it was what I'm doing with
the
broom.
Right. So you're sweeping. What was your mind state when you were sweeping?
My mind was going, I want this to be pure with nothing polluted, so I will accept more and hear more of what's going on so that I can be purified faster, so that I can have happiness and lead others to happiness.
Okay, sorry. My mistake.
You got it, Denise.
She's getting pretty good, isn't she?
About time.
About time. Any other questions? I hope I haven't lost you with this content. We've hardly gotten into anything. I mean, no, we're doing our job. We're doing it as long as we're understanding, you know, kind of unpacking this quite complex topic. But if we can understand the basic concept, then we can go deeper into all these little details.
Noemi, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Good, you hanging in there? Rachel, can you share yet?
Yes, this is what I was talking about. So I do have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Is the definition of conditions and imprints becoming clear? Do you have any questions about those?
I do. We've kind of been just talking about more material items like the teacup. However, if we could kind of jump into
Mental health.
The karma about our connections with other individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the emotional state that comes in, like you were saying, the affair and, you know, how that happened, and that's your own karma imprint.
Mm-hmm.
So that is if I can grasp the understanding, that would be your own emotional state, and kind of drawing that situation towards you because of the thoughts that you keep thinking.
No, not
No?
necessarily the thoughts you keep thinking. You know, some of these things arise because of conditions and timing, right? So, you know, like let's say we develop cancer, or our partner has an affair or whatever. That affair didn't happen because of the thoughts you were thinking. That affair happened due to imprints that you or I created in earlier times, probably in this lifetime, right? Now, you alluded to something that's quite important. You know, let's say it's with our partner has an affair, and it hurts us deeply, right? That experience, because of the complexity of karma, of course, his or her connection with you was karmically created as well. So I'm going to make this up, okay? So just for the point of making a point, okay? Let's say, so probably, please don't take this literally, but it could be literal. In a previous lifetime, you cheated on him, okay? And so you created there's this karmic interplay you have with that person. So anytime we have, like, even sitting in the same room with someone is because you created the causes together in now they were going to say previous life because it doesn't make sense. It's this life. It can't make sense, right? Now, again, Rachel, think about cause and effect. So literally, we tend to call karma cause and effect, law of cause and effect. But it's not the one that the scientists call law of cause and effect. It's this deeper one. And so for you to be, I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on you. I don't mean it all as, you know, but just to make a point. So if your partner has an affair, that experience, because that person's your partner and not another person, because it's that person, you two created that karma together, but differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not just, remember I said all this stuff is interdependent. So karma is not just in your mind. It's interdependent with all these other living beings are with. Now, granted, if you're walking in the forest and you trip and hit your head, okay, there's no other person there. That was probably something, who knows how that was created. I can't tell you. I'm not Buddha. And by the way, these subtleties of cause and effect are only understood by a fully enlightened mind. So I'm just playing around with them. That's really important. A fully enlightened, awakened mind can see every single karmic imprint and cause that you created and I created. So if, for example, if you stub your toe, an enlightened being can look and see that 19 lifetimes ago you stepped on an ant unintentionally and killed it. Something like that. Again, totally making this up. Don't take it literally. The point is that all of these intricacies can be seen by a fully awakened mind, and then as the mind is awakening, you can see them too. You just don't see them with the clarity that a fully awakened mind sees them.
Now, what if forgiveness is brought into the picture?
So as I think it was Wendy maybe asked, how, or someone asked how to, yeah, all of these are purifiable, of course. That's the whole idea. So thank you. Forgiveness, there's what we call the 4 opponent actions. Those 4 things will purify karma as well. There's also deeper spiritual practices that purify karma stronger, quicker. Generally speaking, we create negative karma all day long, by the way. So that's just our norm. Now, it's most of us don't create really heavy negative karma. That's the good news. The kind of negative karma we might, now it depends though. Some people that I know, enjoy fishing. Unfortunately, fishing is killing, and killing is one of the heavier negative karmas. But it's not. What determines a karma?
Harming these days.
What?
It's harming and then putting back.
I wasn't referring to anyone I knew.
But the key was, you said, to create happiness. And so if an individual is out and they're fishing and they're in their state of bliss and their passion,
that's not bliss.
Then,
sorry. That's not bliss.
But for some people, don't you feel that they're called to do certain things like that?
Doesn't mean it's right. I might be called to be a soldier and kill people. Doesn't mean it's right. Some people are called to. I had a client who was a drone pilot, killed hundreds of people. She was a mess, by the way. I'm not saying it's no. Just because you have a calling doesn't mean it's right.
Well, don't you feel that those callings are your kind of your higher self? I guess to kind of back up, my understanding is before we enter this realm, we're in the spirit realm, and so there are contracts made, like you're saying, there are past lives that happen, and maybe I'm intertwining a few different thought processes here.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So my understanding is that we make these contracts with other individuals prior to coming into this realm, and we kind of play out this life. And so our role, that guidance that we have, we're drawn to that. And then, we're living in alignment with that higher self.
Yeah. I don't see it that way. I have a different interpretation of how that works.
Can you go into that for me?
Well, I don't see that we make any contract, because that shows some sort of conscious activity. I don't want to, I don't see that at all. I don't know that idea. The way that it works from my point of view is when you die, when I die, when we die, we leave this body. That's the definition of death. Our mind or consciousness leaves the body. That's the definition of death. We go into an intermediate state where we generally, for most people, have terrible hallucinations. It's like a nightmare. And then we have no control in that intermediate state, which we call the bardo. And then due to imprints on our consciousness, maybe even being terribly scared of what's happening in that nightmarish state. Not everyone has a nightmare experience, but for the most part, it's not positive. Then we seek, out of fear, we seek to get solace, and we seek to get safety, and then that throws us into our next rebirth as we see, well, you could see 2 people, the sperm and egg joining, then we might get a human rebirth, or you might enter the egg of egg of a insect, or a hen, then we might be just spontaneously reborn in a place that's not so good, or spontaneously born in a place that is good, like in a certain heaven. But to have a conscious rebirth, like a contract, doesn't happen very often. We have to really train. Yes, we can. That's the idea of how we train our minds in meditation, so that when we're dying and the elements are absorbing and we're going to freak out because you're losing everything, including your sanity, but it does get to a place of peacefulness. If you hang in there and you're able to meditate, then you're able to focus on that entire experience. And then, like the advanced meditators and mind trainers, you can then direct your mind to your next rebirth. You can direct your mind to go to the pure realms, the heavens. Yes. But that's what we're striving for. But I would say on this planet, how many people can do that? I think statistically not measurable, maybe a couple hundred, couple thousand, maybe 10,000 can actually do that. So 10,000 out of how many we got now? 8 billion is not really measurable. So I don't mean to burst your balloon. I don't mean to sound arrogant. That's how I see it. And there is this kind of, I'm aware of these ideas about the contracts and, choosing this and choosing that. I just don't see it that way. I don't know where those came from. I think it'd be good if you look at the source of those too. Are their source reliable? That explains those kinds of theories, Sorry. I don't mean to
No,
be.
don't be sorry. No, I appreciate your perspective on it. And I mean, you've been advanced with this for years, and so I thank you.
Brainwashed. But I think, Rachel, I think fundamentally, what we should not do is give up our logical, intellectual mind and kind of research the summit. If it makes logical sense, then it's worthwhile. If it doesn't make sense and it's just based on faith, then we have to be a bit careful. Of course, faith is a good thing, but it should be reasoned faith, I have faith in Lama Zopa because I've watched his actions and the Dalai Lama for decades. And sometimes I accept what they say on faith, even though I may not understand it, but that's because I have faith in them as an authority. And yeah, so that's how I work. I'm a skeptic, actually. I am a skeptic.
Can you give some examples as to what you've seen them do or even say that has caused you to deepen what you'd say your faith, your belief in?
Wow. Well, that's a big question. I have to write my biography to answer that one. It's just there's just so many. One of the things that impresses me about this tradition is that it's almost like the more realized, more attainment, the more control they've attained, the humbler they are. And one of my sort of knee-jerk beliefs is if someone says they have a realization, they don't. I'd say run the other way. If someone says I've had clients that said they were Buddha. As soon as you question them, you can see they're just confused. So I think these beings, like the Dalai Lama says, he's just a simple monk. Hang around him a little bit and he's anything but a simple monk. But we say that because, not to draw attention to some sort of cult personality thing. And that's mostly what people do when they have a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of wisdom or a little bit of insight. All of a sudden they become a guru or they become a teacher, and then they become, have a following. And I've seen a lot of this. It's just, I'm in a kind of a privileged position because I spent thousands of hours with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I haven't spent that kind of time with the Dalai Lama. I've spent some time with him. And my point is that if you hang around them long enough, they can't hide their attainments. It seeps out. I didn't introduce Denise to Lama Zopa, but I encouraged her to go see him. And he's quirky. He's kind of quirky. He's kind of hard to read. And, but she just stood by him and it seeped out. It can't not seep out. And it seeped out, and she had kind of like a valve that was open, and the seeping went into her valve, and then she had an experience. And because their purpose of attaining these levels of understanding and not just a realization. Realization means when you internalize these insights and experiences that you develop in meditation. When we internalize them, that's a realized being. And it's not that there's Buddha and the rest of us, or enlightened beings and the rest of us. There are enlightened beings, there's the rest of us, and then there are awakening beings, because this is a path. This is a path. So an awakening being is on the path to become fully awakened. How long will it take that person? When the Buddha started his first entry into the path of awakening, it took him 3 countless great eons. I've counted it at one point, and it's like trillions of years, and millions of incarnations. And so that's what we're up against. I mean, that's what we're up against. That's what we're doing. I can't say where we are. Maybe we're in our trillionth incarnation. Also, you know, this all can be attained, as the example of the great Saint Yogi Milarepa in Tibet. He attained it all in one lifetime. Did it all. So I think these are different metaphors for us. So that's how I would. I don't know where'd I go. You led me astray, Rachel. You know, that's my. When I say belief system, I just want to impress, it's not just belief, it's belief backed up by experience with these beings, with my meditation, with my retreats. You know, I don't have any attainment really, but, you know, a small taste. You know, I can't say I have no attainment, because after 45 years, if I say I have no attainment, then that for sure discourage anyone from getting involved, right? So I can't say, you know, but I've improved. I've improved. I was with 9 years I spent with Lama Yeshe, who was brutal. And he gave me 1 compliment in 9 years. Okay? Because of my personality.
It wasn't about the compliments.
And it's never about the compliments. That's why he gave me only 1. You know what it was?
You're doing a good job.
You've improved. That was it.
You've improved.
And then the moment, I think I must look a little smug. Yeah, no, I said, thank you. I said, Lama, that's due to your kindness. This is just before he passed away, a couple months. I said, that's due to your kindness, you know? And he said, no, it's not my kindness. That's due to your wife's kindness. And I think I thought, I got a little smug, you know, I thought, oh yeah, you know, like that. And then he got really wrathful again. That was the end of it. You know, it was a 30-second compliment. And then he said, don't be so proud. I found her for you. So there it was. He took away my 1 compliment, you know, in a matter of a few seconds. That's just for my karma, for me to advance spiritually the quickest, because that's all they want for all of us. Then my relationship with Lama Yeshe was quite intense, quite strict, quite wrathful. The other people didn't have that experience. I mean, you saw him on you weren't here yet, but on the video, he was the embodiment of love and warmth. But highly realized teachers, they're able to advance the student according to what they need. And not everyone needs a hug. Some people need quite, you know, strict, you know, with our kids. Some strictness works, some strictness doesn't work. With some kids, being strict is good, with some affection works. Okay,
thank you so much. I appreciate your wisdom.
And think about it, and we can talk more next week. Any last points? We didn't get.
I think I've taken everybody's time up, so thank you.
I don't know. What did people find that helpful?
Yes, very helpful.
Oh, good.
And I'm going to have some more questions next week on forgiveness and its impact on impact.
Okay, good.
Sorry, say that. What was that, please?
2 weeks from now.
Oh, 2 weeks from now.
Oh, 2 weeks from now. What's the date?
23rd is today. The 7th is your next one.
Okay. Okay.
I would like to offer to Nathan, when he was saying that the crossroads are really scary and that you can see when you're being ignorant. that I feel that that's something that I've experienced as well, or daily now experience how ignorant I am. But when you say that, like you can see what, if I understood you correctly, you can kind of see the other side of ignorance, but it's scary because it's unfamiliar.
So one thing I want to say to Nathan, everybody, because as you were talking, it occurred to me, in this practice, in this path, Lama used to say this all the time. I really want to convey this to you. Don't push. Don't be ambitious. We are all about getting it now, getting it quickly. And if I don't understand it, I can't understand it. And I just, we have to be very gentle, because you'll screw yourself up, actually. Your nervous system can get messed up. Okay. And this is a balance of mental and mind and body. And if your bodily equipment is fried or twisted, you won't be able to have a steady mind.
Yeah.
Just to be one last provocation, when one begins to see the nature of reality. Now, the definition of reality. Okay, so if there's an illusionist like David Blaine, or what's his name, the big one?
David Copperfield.
Thank you. We know they create these illusions, and like the Statue of Liberty disappearing, right? So, or whatever they do, all these different things. Now, in our back of our minds, we know that it's not real, right?
That the illusion is not real.
The illusion is not real. Like the Statue of Liberty couldn't have really disappeared.
Uh-huh.
So for the meditator, the practitioner who's developing the insight into reality, the definition of reality is really important, is that the way something appears is the way it exists. Okay. The way something appears is the way it exists. What we're told, or where we're at, is everything that appears to us. This is what the enlightened beings, awaken, or the wise beings are telling us. Everything that appears to us is not the way it exists. That's messed up.
Yeah.
That is messed up. So when one begins to see reality, and it's not like, now I see reality, now I don't. It's an uncovering process. It's very gradual. Well, gradual speed doesn't matter. It's process. Can be gradual, can be many lifetimes, in fact. It can be many years. It's cultivated. Then what one begins to see is, everything that I see, I was seeing incorrectly. It didn't exist that way. So what they say is that the way that the awakening being sees things is more like he or she sees things like a dream, or like an illusion, or like an hallucination. Okay. The difference, I don't use hallucination much, because hallucination means the thing's not actually there. So when I'm looking at my watch here, and as I begin to see the reality of the watch, there's still a watch. There's still something there. It just is not there the way I'm seeing it right now. Now, how it appears is it appears more like an illusion or a dream, but there's something there. Okay. An illusion, dreams are just metaphors. It's not actually like that. Okay. So I just want to say that to you, that the world doesn't disappear. That'd be nihilistic.
That actually does help a lot.
Yeah, because that's nihilist. That's being nihilistic. What we are is we're positivists or eternalists. Well, the answer to that is not nihilism. That's why they call it Buddhism the path of the middle way. It's between nihilism and positivism, or nihilism and eternalism. Okay. Right now we see everything as existing concrete, like positive, eternally, whatever you want to say. But the answer to that is, this watch doesn't exist. Nathan doesn't exist. It's not that. Nathan doesn't exist the way I see him.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
let's leave it there.
Yeah.
And so I have a question that may well be meaningless. It may well be deep. It might be both.
There's no meaningless question.
Okay, all right. Well, wait till you hear this one. So if a more enlightened being, if one of the lamas you're talking about, or the Dalai Lama themselves, for instance, were at this David Copperfield event where all of the rest of us saw the Statue of Liberty disappearing, it's possible that they would obviously they experience everything differently from what we do, but what are some ways in which they might experience that?
They would see exactly what's happening.
So they would be able to see.
They would see.
This is the trick that David Copperfield did to make the thing look as if to us as if it disappeared.
They would see what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And they would see what David Copperfield's seeing, which is the reality. Right. I took Lama Zopa, I took him to the mystery spot here in Santa Cruz. You familiar with that?
I've heard of it, but what is that again?
Well, it's like where balls roll uphill and
an optical illusion. Okay, yeah.
All these, and we went. There's this one. Have you been in it, Denise?
Yes, that cracks me up that you would take them there.
So yeah. So you know how that little house where you stand in, everyone's standing in the same way, but one guy's higher and one person lower. And I went in there, I got kind of like vertigo. You know, I'm pretty good with those things, but for some reason that got me. And I remember coming out and saying to Rinpoche, "Oh, what did you think of that?" He says, "Oh, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, God, I got pretty dizzy in there." And he says, "Oh, you're much more sensitive than me." And then we went into the gift shop. And we asked him what he thought about the tour, you know, what he thought about the place. And he said the most interesting thing to him was the tour guide. So he wasn't fooled. He wasn't fooled. Okay, I think we're done.
I get the feeling that the more realized people are, the more they see intention, not see visually, but like something happens and it's like very obvious why it did. And it becomes apparent to them, where it's not this, oh, I wonder how that happened and why that happened. It's like, it's obvious it happened because of this.
So whatever data is there, they perceive.
Yeah.
I'm talking about very highly realized, you know, more realized beings. So part of the data is your mind. They see the mind. You know, yeah, whatever data is there, they can perceive. But that's a very, you know, we're talking quite lofty, but as you develop, I always mention to people that, you know, people think clairvoyance is such a big deal. It's not a big deal. The data is there. It's just we're just blocked from the data. It's like going in, and this again stereotypical, excuse me. It's like going to the Amazon, finding indigenous tribes. Your smartphone works, and you tell them it's going to rain tomorrow by looking at your smartphone. This is because you have the information, right? You have access to the information.
Oh, that's a great one.
So, you know, the antenna is our 5 senses in our mind. And as they purify and clarify, then it's all here. Everything's here. It's not a big deal. Clairvoyance, well, it is a big deal. But, you know, on one level, it's not a big deal. Okay, I got to go eat dinner.
That was one thing that I was going to say.
She's not going to let me go, is she?
Come
Nathan, help me out here. Rachel.
But I heard this thing that said, when you're quiet enough, you can even hear the animals in nature.
Yeah, of course. You can
right?
hear them breathing.
That's just like this beginning part. Like we can blow through the park and just see the trees, or we can spend so much time in the park and be so quiet and so still and so open that all of a sudden you start seeing the patterns of the squirrels and you hear the speech of the birds and
the information is there, you can perceive it.
Yeah.
As you develop these what we call the 5 clairvoyances, you can hear sounds all across the earth, across the other side of the planet and further. Just as okay, good night. Thank you. Remember to dedicate, you know, towards good things.
Come on.
So
thank you.
All the generation of all these ideas, I hope I didn't confuse you, mess your minds up. If I did, that's okay too for a little while, but to generate these ideas generated within our mind stream may develop into positive imprints, and these positive imprints pop in our brains, like in our minds, like popcorn, developing our own awareness, our own clairvoyances, our own pure awakening mind for the benefit of all living beings, including the insects. Good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Karuna.
you.
Good night. Thank you.